Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. Brandon Mileski along with Pat Micheletti. As always, it's brought to you by SodaStick.com. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, Brandon.
We only have a couple more of these. I think next week might be our last one leading up to the regular season for the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, this is a off-season podcast, and then you and I will be doing a Wild fan line broadcast. So we wanted to make it a little Wild intensive today, and analyst for Fox, I almost said Fox Sports North, Valley Sports North.
I do that all the time, too.
Wes Walz is our guest now. Wes, great to talk with you. I haven't seen you in a while, and because we haven't chatted with you in a while, what's kind of been your overview of the entire Wild offseason? Obviously, the Karisa Suter buyouts. You got free agency didn't really make the trade splashes we thought they might make. Do you think the Wild improved this offseason, or just kind of maybe stayed where they were?
I mean, there's a lot of unknowns yet, right? I mean, when you turn over your defensive core by 50%, you're going to have three new players in there. We don't know exactly what we have yet. Obviously, Goligoski, he's played 900 games in the NHL. I really like that move. I think he's a defenseman that can handle pace, and as you know, the game's getting faster and faster. A guy that can be a one-man breakout. Now we've got four defensemen that can be one-man breakout. So there's not too many teams around the league that can do that. Kulikov has looked so good, guys, in the preseason games. Even last night's game, I thought he was – and I know St. Louis didn't bring all their players, but he looked great too. But a lot of unknowns. Can we get the same kind of goaltending we got last year from Cam Talbot? The young kids have stepped in, and, Billy Guerin and Dean Evason have said from day one, there's no jobs given to anyone. You've seen what Beckman has done. You've seen what Duhaime has done. Boldy's had a decent camp, not great camp, but Marco Rossi might need a little more seasoning. So there's some decisions to be made in that Wild front office. So it's going to be exciting to see how it all turns out.
You know what excites me, Wes, is it's been a long time in this organization's history where you can say, God, even if those guys end up getting sent down or however it shakes out, right, is that you've got talent that you can bring up and that they can play. It's been a while since the organization has been this rich in young prospects.
Well, the cupboard's full. Full, Pat, and even some of the kids that got first rounders that got sent back to the Western Hockey League, Ontario League, that are going to play in the USHL. I mean, there's good players in our system, and that is only going to make everybody better. It's going to push the guys in the bottom half of the lineup to play. If you've seen what Duhaime has done and Beckman with an overtime goal last night, I mean, that guy is just not going away.
Yeah.
And these guys, the part that I like the most is they all play with so much enthusiasm and energy. Like, they're characters. They're characters too. And you need that through an 82-game schedule. So the future definitely is bright. I like what these guys are bringing to the table. And, since Dean Evason has taken over this team, I think he got the last 12 games a year and a half ago. I think the Wild are 8-4, scored a ton of goals in those 12 games. The Wild finished 9th in the NHL in scoring last year. So the brand of hockey that Dean Evason wants these guys to play is just up in your face and skate. And I think with these young kids, Pat and Brandon, the pace that they play with we're going to look like a faster team. We just are. I don't care how old they are. They're a little bit younger, going to make some mistakes for sure, but we're going to be a faster team. And for me, I watch the last four teams every year in the playoffs. We watch it every year and we just marvel at how fast these teams are. Got to be fast to play in the NHL.
Let's talk about specifically one of the young guys, Adam Beckman, who's got 4 goals now. He had one last night, also got in a fight, which did not exactly go his way. I want to talk about the fighting aspect of this, Wes. I understand like the culture of hockey, and obviously you played professional, so you're going to be able to speak on this much better than I have. I haven't been in a locker room in the NHL. But explain to me the culture in which a guy like Beckman feels like he needs to get in a fight to kind of prove hey, I want to be here. I want to be at this level when he's a skill player. Obviously he's been scoring some goals. I guess I just don't fully comprehend why he feels like he needs to risk his health at that stage when he's not, he's not going to, if he makes the NHL team, he's not going to be a fighter.
Listen, I don't want to take 10 minutes of the 20-minute podcast talking about like why somebody should fight, why they shouldn't. Okay, Brandon, he's trying to make the team.
Yep.
It's simple as that. Something happened on the ice. Okay. He got punched in the nose. That's okay. Like, I have no problem with that. I really don't. Do I like the stage fighting? Listen, nobody picked up more gloves in the NHL in my 15 years than me. The first 5 years of my career, I played with Chris Nyland and Lynn.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so nobody knew how to scoop up gloves better than me and watch guys get punched in the face. I hated it. I still don't like the stage fighting. I think it's garbage. It doesn't turn the tides, anything. But I do not want fighting taken out of the game. That's my opinion, because there's going to be times in games when guys get upset. Okay, in a 5-1 game, you get upset with somebody and it just happens. Okay, that's part of hockey. If you want to take emotion out of the game of hockey, then we can go play tiddlywinks and do whatever we want. But if there's going to be emotion in the game, you've seen the kid. Does he play with emotion? The kid plays with emotion. That's part of his game. That'll happen from time to time. So I have no problem at all with him dropping the gloves, even though he's trying to get noticed. Listen, I tell my my Pee-wee boy when he's trying out for the Pee-wee team out here in Woodbury as a first-year Pee-wee, get noticed. Just get noticed. Carry the puck around, outfight somebody in the corner, and go to the net where all of a sudden your instructors have to look down at their sheet and go, who is that guy?
Who's that kid? Yep.
Who's that guy?
100%.
All right. So that's how I feel about that. And I don't want to talk for 10 minutes about fighting. And I'm with you. I can't stand stage fighting. But that situation I have no problem with. Getting in, he was scuffling with Walker, and we're down 3-0, whatever. He was pissed off at him, and it happened.
Hey, Wes, we're gonna see. The roster is gonna get set on Monday, and we're gonna see 20 some odd guys that are going to initially be with a team. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the team that they want out there right away, just because of contracts and rules. And does that get at you a little bit, or is this just the reality of the world we live in?
Like, what do you mean exactly, Pat? Like obviously the Wild have some difficult decisions.
There's going to be guys that they want to keep up. That
should they go? Should they go with the older guys or the younger guys? Is that kind of
the guys that they have to go, that they because of a contract, right?
Yeah.
Because of a one-way, and whatever not that the player's not a good player, because every player up here is good, or else you wouldn't be here. But what they might be thinking, man, this lineup would look good, but at this particular stage, we just can't make that move.
Yeah, like for instance, we picked up Pitlick on waivers, so there's a good chance he's gonna stay here, right? Otherwise he has to go back on waivers. A guy like Kyle Rau's been around for a long time. So you're saying you give Beckman, Duhaime, those opportunities ahead of those guys. That's the team wants tough decisions to make. Right. They do. Yeah. I was a young guy earlier in my career, and I remember out playing guys that were older than me early in my career, and I was the one that got sent to the minors because I was on a 2-way deal. And that's just sometimes the world you live in. You just, as a player, you got to take care of your business. That is all. And I think these young kids like Beckman and Duhaime, and we haven't even talked about Marco Rossi and Boldy a whole lot. I mean,
not at all, right?
But to be honest with you, for me, the coaching staff and managers have talked about giving guys opportunity if they come in here and take jobs. That's one thing to say. Now it's going to be interesting to see if those guys get opportunities out of the gate. Pitlick's going to get an opportunity to play tonight. We'll see how he plays here tonight. I would have no problem at all sending Boldy, Rossi, Dewar, Duhaime, send all of them down, Addison, and have those guys grow together for a half a year. How many times have we seen NHL teams that win Stanley Cups go, these guys all played together in Milwaukee, like Nashville, or together. They came up together through the system. Mm-hmm. And to have them all play together and learn to win together,
and
come
up together,
and grow together. And, the first year or two might be kind of guys up and down, things like that to fill spots. But having even Addison down there running the power play and getting him a few more games down there, that is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think in my heart, guys, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel in my heart that's kind of Billy's ammo, is to have those guys. I think he's been around a long time. He's seen when you can put guys in the oven for a while and just let them bake for a while, what the product looks like if you can just keep fighting that urge to bring these guys up. So there's a lot of good options around here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too often we get caught on opening day lineup when in fact, like, we're going to see a lot of these guys throughout the year at some point. So they're going to play with the Minnesota Wild. Let's talk about Kaprizov, and I'm not going to talk about his contract, but obviously he had a great rookie season. What can you do for a follow-up encore here in year two? Like, what's the next step for Kirill Kaprizov?
Just more of the same. I mean, I last year, doing the broadcast, guys, I wanted to compare him so much to Sidney Crosby. I wanted to say it on the air, but I kept looking at how many games he played. He's played 35, 40 games.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I cannot say it. I can't say it. I can't, because in the offensive zone with his footwork, how he comes up with pucks and unbelievable hands, like, his game reminds me in the offensive zone so much of Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Now he's getting paid like Sidney Crosby. I think I'm going to start saying it a little bit, but how about our fans getting an opportunity to watch this guy for the next 5 years? We've come into the XL Energy Center for the 21 years here and always had maybe the best player on the ice wear our opponent's jersey. Now that's not the case. We got an absolute star. And you heard some of the sound. We had our preview show yesterday before the Wild game aired, and you listen to some of the sound from Marcus Foligno and Jared Spurgeon talk about his leadership and how he just wants to be better. It's great. And listen, Matt Zuccarello is not the player that Matt Zuccarello is without 97 too. So all of a sudden his game goes up another 30%. His point per game total last year was the highest it's ever been in the NHL last year, 0.83. I just happened to look through the numbers there. So he had an amazing year. You've seen what Zuccarello did with Rick Nash when he was in New York. He got him 40 goals. So the fact that those two guys are playing together, you've got Eric Sinek, who I think is going to start there. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to unfold with that top line. We'll see. He's going to be a straight line player. The one thing I do like is he's going to work his butt off in the offensive zone, and his long reach is going to create so many loose pucks for those two guys with his long reach that I think we're going to spend those two guys, Zuccarello and Kaprizov, are going to spend more time in the offensive zone with Eric Sinek on the ice. So a lot to look forward to, a lot to see how it's all going to play out. And I got to tell you, I'm just really excited. We got a fast team and guys that are even going to go down to the minors. We got speed everywhere, man. It's fun to watch.
And another point, Wes, what I think 97 does, I think it motivates Fiala, because, I think Fiala wants to say, wait a second, there's another guy here that can light it up. And, I think that's going to motivate him to be a better player and to want to be that guy. And I think that, that healthy competition is terrific for a team.
One of the things I watch for, is after teams score goals when Fiala and Kaprizov are on the ice, I watch how guys celebrate. It's a body language thing to me that means a lot.
Yep.
I watched Kaprizov, like after Fiala scored a goal last year, he would go over to him and race over him. And I'm talking about Kaprizov wasn't even in on the play and didn't get an assist. A lot of guys get really excited when they know they got an assist.
Yeah.
I watched Kaprizov not be involved in the play, and Fiala makes an unbelievable play and blows it over the goalie's shoulders. Who's the first guy racing across the ice on the power play? 97 to wrap his arms around him. Like, those things don't go unnoticed by the coaches. They don't go unnoticed by the players and the benches. And, I do agree with you, Pat. I think Kevin Fiala on a 1-year deal. I mean, in my opinion, I'm going to go out on a limb right now. I think Kevin Fiala is going to score more goals this year than Kaprizov, because I think Kevin Fiala is going to play against the 5 and 6. Can you imagine that guy on the third line? You got him on the third line. He's going to match up against the 5 and 6 defensemen.
Right.
How the power play situation is going to unfold. You can see right now, Dean Evison went through practices and stuff. He's loaded up his top unit, right? Okay. He's loaded up his top unit. I think the top unit this year it's not going to be 1 minute for you, 1 minute for the second unit, just because of there's going to be the more days off in between games. You can have these kids play. They're 24 years old. They can play 22, 23, 24 minutes now. Fiala's going to stay on the ice for 1 minute and 30 seconds on the power play with that unit together. I mean, I really do think that Kevin Fiala is going to have a breakout year, and there's going to be some difficult decisions. Again, Billy, you got some time off right now because with contract negotiations with Kirill Kaprizov, but they could be sitting on your lap here again. I think he's going to have a great year. He's such a great player. My
concern with Fiala, though, is who are you going to play with him, Wes?
Yeah, well, that's and that's why I brought up the power play minute 30, right?
Yeah.
Listen, we saw what Kirill Kaprizov could do last year playing with Victor Rask most of the season, who doesn't play at the same pace, as Zuccarello and things like that. So if you're a great player, you will figure out ways. And I don't know a whole lot about Freddie Gaudreau. We don't know who's going to get that opportunity on that second line, whether it's going to be Boldy or Beckman or, Pitlick. We don't know. You don't know who's going to be on that left side there too. So, but I do like the idea, and there's a lot to be said for top skill guys not playing against the best defenseman in the world night in and night out, and that's what Kaprizov's going to. You can't really overlook that.
We're talking with Wes Walz. Of course, he does Bally Sports North analyst work for the Minnesota Wild. Good to see you guys back on television again last night after missing the first couple of preseason games. I want to talk about where you're at with Jordan Greenway. Obviously, last year I thought he had a great start to the season. The first half of the year maybe kind of plateaued. Maybe didn't emerge as much in the playoffs as we would have liked to have. He's kind of the one guy, Wes, where I'm not really sure what you're ever going to get from him. And from a consistency standpoint, at this stage of his career, where are you at in your thought process with Jordan Greenway?
I mean, Jordan is who he is. He's a guy that's going to score 8 to 15 goals a year, 15 if he gets some luck around the net. He still needs more consistency to his game. He just really does, and it's been talked about for a long time. We know how he can skate. We've seen him abuse guys in the offensive zone. But are there other guys here that can Beckman do similar things that Jordan Greenway can do? Can Duhaime do similar things that Jordan Greenway can do? And maybe finish a little bit more around the net, like that goal that Duhaime scored yesterday. Can he get 15 goals and bring speed and bring pace? And now, if you're Jordan Greenway, or if you're Victor Rask, or if you're Bukestad or Rao or Sturm, any of those guys, you're looking around right now, and you're looking at what's going on. You have to be a fool to know what's going on. So those guys, I'm telling you, Jordan Greenway and Bukestad and Sturm, those guys better be ready to play in game one, and they better have a good night, because if they don't, they're going to pull the trigger like that, because with getting new guys in and out of the lineup, there's so much pressure to win in this league. Jordan's just got to make sure that he's ready to play there every night. It needs to be more consistent. Same stuff we've been saying really for the last 3 or 4 years, guys.
Well, at some point, because we look at Greenway and we say, okay, big body, can skate, can fly, can handle the puck, can manhandle people. It's like, okay, why isn't it happening? Well, you got to have the mental capacity to want it, to have that drive. And, I hope he finds it, because if he does, then we can see a product, right? But everybody is built differently, I guess.
Well, the mind is, the scorer mentality thing is a weird thing. And just look at Beckman, 4 goals or whatever in 5 games. He knows where to be in the offensive zone.
Yeah.
Pat, you were a player like that. I never saw you play, but I know what kind of numbers you put up. You don't put up numbers like that. You were never confused with Kirill Kaprizov with your speed, Pat. So I knew that you know what you're doing in the offensive zone. Right. It's amazing how the pucks always pop out to you guys. That's it. Yeah. And it doesn't happen by accident. And there's something to it. And you need guys that can finish. And listen, I was a guy that could skate around and look like I was doing a lot of things too. But you need guys that will fly under the radar. They get one power play chance at the end of the game on the second unit. Beckman, it's in the net. Tie ball game. That's it. You need guys like that. You really do. And so that's why it's so nice for this organization to have guys, different types of players, right? Duhaime is a speedster, guy that can skate, play with energy. Beckman doesn't have the blazing speed, but he's just a guy that's infectious and he can score. So those are different types of players too that are going to be able to be plugged in different scenarios as the season goes on.
All I know is
go ahead, Brandon.
I was just say all I know is with Beckman is we'll never hear the fans yell shoot with him because he's going to shoot. There's no question about that.
Well, the other thing about Beckman too that I forgot to mention too, Brandon, is that second unit on the power play. You need someone who's going to finish in that second unit. That might be something to look at down the road.
He's a power play guy.
Yeah. So sorry, I cut into you. Asking me another question there. But
I was going to move in a different direction. So my final question for you, Wes. Your prediction for where the Wild will finish in the Central Division?
Well, I think everybody understands that Colorado is the class of the division. Arizona's probably going to be, looking up at everybody as the season goes on. But I'm not going to really make any predictions, Brandon. The Minnesota Wild are going to be in the mix. I mean, they have a great chance to finish second, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are picking Winnipeg. I'm still not sold on Winnipeg, to be honest with you. A lot of how the Wild do are going to depend, obviously, on injuries. Cam Talbot, for me, I know there was a lot of light shined on Kirill Kaprizov last year, and deservedly so. Cam Talbot was the MVP of our team last year. I think the way he played, he brought the stability, just brought a cement foundation to everybody in the locker room. If he can continue if Cam Talbot gets a .915 save percentage this year, I think we finish second in the division. I would not be shocked. I think it's better. I think it's probably a 50-50 chance that 5 teams come out of the Central this year, just with what's going on in the Pacific and watching some of the preseason games. Calgary looked, I watched a little of the Calgary game last night. I know they scored a few late, but they look lost right now. So I don't know what's going to happen in the Pacific, but the Wild are going to be in the mix, and there's a good chance that they're going to finish in the top 3, in my opinion.
Wes, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about, and you can speak to this.
Sounds serious, Pat. It sounds serious.
It is, because I'm gonna go back to when you played and when you guys made it to the Western Conference Finals, blah blah blah. But the team concept, right? You guys knew that you weren't the most talented team in the league, but you had something in that locker room that was magical, where you believed in everybody, where you had each other's backs, where you just, it was, we're going to get this done together as a team. Now, I think Minnesota lost that at some points during, I don't know, the middle years after you were gone. And watching them a year ago, and you brought it up with Kaprizov going to hug a guy, even if he wasn't involved in the play. I mean, it just looked like a team that was together, that wanted it together, that didn't care who scored the goals. And just speak to that a little bit, and what you saw and what difference you have seen in the last year compared to, a few years back, let's call it.
Those early years with the Wild, not just the 03 run, but even those early years with the Wild, I had never been in a locker room that really cared about each other at the National Hockey League level like that. And I think a lot of it was just because we were all throwbacks and guys, we saw what happened with Vegas. That's what happens. You get that chip on your shoulder, and people don't think I can play. I know I can play. We had a lot of that.
Yeah.
You saw how remember Richard Park scoring in overtime. I mean, it was an avalanche. The poor guy. I wasn't even sure if he was going to be able to play the next night. And I was trying to pull guys off of Richard Park just so I had a winger the next night. So, and that's how it was. And I see the same thing. I saw it last year for the first time in a long time, where just you watch Kirill Kaprizov. We had a camera on him on the bench. Someone, I think it was Bukestad, scored a goal last year to make it a 1-goal game. I watched Kirill Kaprizov jump up and almost hit his head on the roof.
Right.
Those are things that mean so much to a team. And I just see a lot more of it now. And it translates out onto the ice in wins. So it's I agree with you, Pat. I see a lot more of it here now, but yeah, it's exciting to watch, and we'll see what the Wild can bring to the table this year. But I do know this. We were back in 2003. People never gave us credit for how fast our team was. We had one of the fastest teams in the NHL, and we were much faster than the Colorado Avalanche, even with all their Hall of Famers. And I'm telling you, team speed today, you need guys that can finish for sure too. But your team has to play at a certain pace to have a chance to win championships. Yeah. And we might not have the skill level quite yet, but our teams are going to play very, very close to that pace that you're going to need. And that's what we did in 2003. We had a fast team. And the other thing too is Billy Guerin knows what it's like. He played in 95 with the New Jersey Devils. Okay. He knows what a team, they won a Stanley Cup with a very similar team that we had with the Wild. Okay. They had Billy Guerin on their team. Going to go, it was a Hall of Famer, not me or anybody else, but he understands what it feels like.
Martin Brodeur,
and he knows,
Stevens,
that's
Niedermeyer,
those two guys are pretty good. Those two guys are pretty good. But he knows what it feels like to have like kind of be overmatched and play as a team, and Jacques Lemaire happened to be the head coach of that team too. And Dean Evison has done a great job of just allowing guys to grow together, be themselves. He lets them go in the offensively, lets them, show their emotion, holds them accountable and firm. We've seen it. I mean, he benched Zach Parise. Guys are like, so he's
right.
There's no fooling around with a guy, but he's fair and he lets you just be you. And we're in a good spot right now.
Yep. Wes, I lied to you. I got one more question for you. Okay. You sent me down memory lane now to 2003. In my opinion, I know you've been at Xcel Energy Center for a lot of Minnesota Wild games. In my opinion, Richard Park scoring in overtime was the loudest I've ever heard that building. Would you agree? In Game 6?
Yeah, that was. It's hard. I was still playing, right? So you don't even hear that. Like when I remember turning in the corner, I don't really. Everything's a blur. You don't really hear the crowd, as you guys know, when you're playing. But I remember some of those runs, like even when Mikael Granlund scored in overtime, Zucker scored in overtime in a playoff game.
Right.
I remember being in the building, like up in the press box, going, like just almost startling how loud the building got. So it's hard really to compare one to the other, to be honest with you. But I just remember, I do remember the avalanche that came from our bench. And like I told you, I was just concerned that Richard Park wasn't going to be able to play in Game 7. I'm going to get Matt Johnson and all those guys off of him. But yeah, it was fun to reminisce on old times.
Wes, always great to talk with you. Really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, good to connect with you guys. We'll see you around the rink, boys.
Talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Wes Walz, LA Sports North, former Minnesota Wild player. Pat, I still remember when Richard Park scored that goal. There was somebody who had a sign behind the bench, and they showed up on the big screen. It just said, "I'm having fun," and I thought it was one of the most brilliant signs I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was. Just think how long ago that was.
I know, too long ago. 18 years ago.
But no, Wes is excited. I think a lot of people, Brandon, after the moves they made and the lack of that Eichel type guy to bring in here, you knew that the organization had a plan, right? And now maybe they didn't get that number one center they were looking for, but they knew. I didn't know that Duhaime, Beckman, DeWars, guys like that, Rossi, Boldy. You don't know how they were going to play in camp, but it's really, really exciting to see that the organization does have some young, really good prospects that can fill roles if needed.
Yeah, we'll chat about that in a second, but I want to let our listeners and our viewers know about SodaStick.com. They sponsor Beyond the Pod. You can go to SodaStick.com, get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You will love it, and we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFN for 15% off. That is SodaStick.com, SodaStick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off your next order. Pat, I think the young players is kind of the interesting topic here right now with the Minnesota Wild. It kind of seems like as much as we love Marco Rossi and his future, that they've got it set in their minds that he's going to start in Iowa. Even Matt Boldy, they keep putting him in with the big lineup. So I still think there's a shot that he could make the opening lineup. But it's hard not to be impressed with the way Duhaime has looked. He had a great goal last night, just using his speed and to score top shelf from that bad angle. And Beckman's got 4 goals, and he scored another one. And Wes brought up the point that I think Beckman is not going to wow you in like transition type, like going through the neutral zone. Like that's not his style. But when you're set up in a power play situation, or even like towards the end of the game where you're in a 6-5 situation and he's on the half wall, he's a great weapon to have because 1, he can shoot, and 2, he will shoot.
Guys look pretty going through the neutral zone, and we've seen guys who can skate like the wind, and thank God there's an end board, or else they would still be skating. The guy flat out, take away any other part of his game, the guy flat out knows how to score. And it is there's something to that. You just don't shoot and a lot of guys shoot and hope. He shoots and knows. Okay. And those guys are difficult to find. And again, another point Wes brought up, your second power play unit, right? You just aren't going to throw a second power play unit to kill time. You're still on the power play. You expect them to score. And if he can fill a void there, I tell you what, that it's another weapon for him. And whether he starts here or not, we don't know. We're going to find out Monday. And it's really going to be interesting because Wes is right. Guys like Bukestad, guys like Sturm, guys like Victor Rask, now all of a sudden, instead of knowing that you have that comfort level of, I'm going to be here, who are they going to bring up? They got guys that are knocking at the door, or maybe even a little bit better. So they got to be ready to play from the get-go. Hopefully that's going to motivate them. And Jordan Greenway also.
Yeah. The Wild claimed Rem Pitlick off of waivers. Obviously, a great Gophers career for Rem. He's from here. He's from Minnesota. His dad, obviously, we're well aware of who he is. You've seen a lot of Rem Pitlick at the University of Minnesota. Talk about his game and can it translate to the NHL?
Well, lightning fast, really great hands, and loves to play the game. And a really, really good kid. His father, Lance, former Gopher who had a long NHL career. Here's what you look for when you go from one level to the next level to the next level. Last year in Milwaukee, he was there. I think the most of the year. He was their leading scorer, I believe, first or second, and so he continues to produce points. I think he just needs a chance to play in a regular situation, and he's. I'm anxious. We'll see. Once he gets acclimated, what he can do. But boy, he's going to add speed. He's going to add skill, and you're always looking to add those 2 elements to your hockey team. So he's going to be given a good shot. So we'll see.
Pat, I found it interesting that Wes Walz brought up Matt Zuccarello because I was planning on bringing up Zuccarello with you today. He's got 5 assists through 2 preseason games, obviously playing. I'm assuming he'll be in the lineup tonight against Chicago. A lot of the veterans will be. It's amazing how things change in 2 years, right, Pat? Where he was, 2 years ago, did not have a good season. He had a shoulder thing, didn't he? I forget at this point. But people were doing the old, why did Paul Fenton give this guy this contract? They gave him a no move clause, so now we are forced to keep him in the expansion draft with Seattle, and people are calling him a bust through 1 season. Last year, he obviously, came in a little healthier, looked reinvigorated with Kirill Kaprizov, and so far through camp and through the first 2 preseason games, he looks great.
A lot of it sometimes, Brandon, is the system, the coaching staff, and I'm not taking a shot at Bruce Boudreau or his staff. You played a certain style, and you get put with certain players, and whatever the case may be, he got new motivation. A, playing with Kaprizov, B, playing under Dean Evison and his style of play. He wanted more up tempo. He wanted, allowed creativity, and where Bruce, I think, more which surprises me, with more on the defensive side of things, whatever. So I just think he got a new lease on life, and he's loving playing, and he's happy, and who wouldn't be happy, right? Getting to go out every shift with 97.
Yeah.
That motivates him. That motivates a player. And so, and he is healthy again. So, we know he can pass the puck. There's no doubt about that. And he plays hard, and he plays with an edge. Listen, I don't think anybody liked the contract when he first signed it, because he's going to be 37 by the, on a no move deal at pretty, good chunk of money. But you know what? I guess you can't worry about that now, and he's playing great. So let's hope it continues.
Pat, throughout the years of the Minnesota Wild history, we've had players that we've brought in through free agency that we even spend money on, that they come here and they don't put up as much offensively as they have in previous stops in their career, and
Right.
we can't figure out why. And I've always talked about like Patrick Kane in Chicago, that whatever guy you put with him, they are going to score a bunch of points, probably
Right.
elevate their status and get paid, and they end up moving on somewhere else, because just playing with him is going to make you better. And we have one of those players now in Kirill Kaprizov.
Yes.
You saw him elevate, and Matt Zuccarello is a good player, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But he elevated Matt Zuccarello last year. He elevated Victor Rask. I'm worried about how Rask is going to look if he's not with Kaprizov, right? I mean, Rask,
Right.
at least Rask looked like a competent, okay NHL player last year, and
Yep.
if he's not playing with Kaprizov, he might not look as good this year. But it's nice to finally have one of those players on your team that if we go get someone in free agency or by a trade, and I know it's a little bit trickier now with our salary cap's going to be the next forward, but even with some of your younger guys coming up, right? If Rossi eventually makes it, or Boldy makes it, or if Beckman gets a look next to him, or who's ever playing center like Joel Eriksson, we have a player that's going to be able to elevate those other players and increase their offense.
Hey, listen, anyone getting the chance to play in a line with Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux,
or Pat Micheletti at the University of Minnesota.
Hey, listen, I remember Kevin Stevens, right? He was a big guy, skated well, really good player, right? But I remember talking to him. He said, Mick, I get the chance to play with Lemieux. He was Lemieux's left wing. And he goes from, 10, 15 goal guy to getting 40, 50 goals a season. Not because he's playing with such a great player in Mario Lemieux. All he had to do, and Kevin was a smart player and a really good hockey player, obviously. But, he just, man, you get that, you get to play with someone like that. It can really elevate a person's game.
All right, let's talk about college hockey last weekend,
Yep.
Pat. Obviously, the most impressive weekend I thought was Minnesota State Mankato going out and sweeping Massachusetts, one of the top teams in the country, on the road. Not that you watched either of those games, but still an impressive performance for Mankato.
Really impressive. And, when you have a goaltender like they do in Dryden McKay and, Nathan Smith, a lot of people don't talk about him. We talked about him here, might be one of the best players in the country this year, third round pick of the Winnipeg Jets. They're very good again. And they, everyone wins a different way. Mankato plays a pro style game, a very smart game. They don't beat themselves, and they're going to be really a tough out this year. Great series this weekend where St. Cloud and Mankato meet up in Mankato this weekend. It's early in the year. Both teams are going to be better in 3 months, but it's going to be a terrific series.
And I know you saw St. Cloud last Saturday because you were broadcasting their game against St. Thomas, playing their first ever Division I game. Not a good introduction for the Tommies into NCAA hockey, losing 12-2. But the Tommies, at least a little bit more competitive Sunday at XL Henry Center, losing 2-0.
Listen, the score of the game was not indicative of the game. Obviously, everyone's nervous in their first game, both teams. But St. Thomas got in penalty trouble. I think they had 5 penalties in the first period. They played on an Olympic-sized rink. I'm not making excuses for the Tommies. They can skate. Obviously they don't have the depth of of a team that returned 23 of 27 and played in the national championship game a year ago.
Yeah.
They've got good goaltending and Peter Tomey, who played half the game on that night, gave up 6 goals. Not one was his fault. He was great the next night. They will build a program. And, I even before the game, I talked to Rico Blase. I said, you know what? I said, in a couple of years, you're going to look back at this game and just laugh, and this was before the game. He says, I know. Because I asked him, what are the expectations, for this season? What do you think? He said, we just want to get better every day, Mick. We just want to get better and create a culture and blah, blah, blah. And they fought back the next night. They're not going to lose every game in the CCHA this year. I can guarantee you that. They have some kids who can play. And bottom line, Brandon, we got another Division I team in the state of Minnesota that people will be talking about in a couple of years.
And we didn't get to see the Gophers this past weekend. Their series against Alaska postponed, I think moved to like January. So the Gophers will debut this weekend against Mercyhurst. I'm expecting a very thorough scouting report on Mercyhurst from you, Pat. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know much about them. They are, they're in the Atlantic League. They will probably not be a great opponent for Minnesota this weekend. But listen, Minnesota is loaded. Okay. I talked to Bob Motzko the other day, and he says, Mick, I've got 3 power plays. And his biggest problem, Michigan's biggest problem, some of the teams that have these high enders, is keeping everybody happy, because not everyone can play in the power play. Not everyone can play a penalty kill. Not everyone is going to be out there at the end of the game. So for some of these teams, managing their players, which is a big part of winning and losing, Brandon, as you know, is going to be imperative. So, again, I'll say it over and over. To me, there's about 10 to 12 teams that could win it this year, based on, the number of guys coming back, the younger guys coming in. So it's going to be a terrific year.
Pat, our final episode of Beyond the Pod for this season will be next week, and then I will talk to you on Wild Fan Line after the Wild's home opener, I believe, 12 days from now.
I look forward to it, Brandon. We're gonna have a great year with that also, and I should point out also that I will be joining the Big Ten Network this season, also in a capacity. So looking forward to that. Not that my schedule's busy enough, right? But it's what we love to do, and it's going to be a great season.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing your analysis.
Thank you.
All right. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. We'll talk to you for one final time next week. Like I said, Beyond the Pod is brought to you by sodastick.com. Get 15% off by using the code KFAN on your next order. We'll talk to you next week on Beyond the Pod. Bye.